Hi everyone, it's Christine here from Ever After Paper Crafts, and today I have a really fun project to share for you for Butterfly Reflections ink. This is a fun kind of autumn card that I did in some autumn colors. It uses this adorable brand new stamp set from Honeybee Stamps. I am blown away by their brand new release, and Vanessa has all of the new release in the shop. This one is called Forest Friends, and it has got to be my most favorite stamp set ever. I just absolutely love this stamp set, and it was so much fun to watercolor these little critters here. So much fun. I also really like the sentiments as well. I used the "thank you so much for your kindness" on the front, and then I put this sentiment, which says "no act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted," on the inside, and I'll show you that. So there's the sentiment on the inside, and then I stamped 3 of the hearts and some of the oxide ink that I used on the front to kind of coordinate the inside with the outside. So I thought that made a really cute touch for the inside. As you can see, I have done some Distress Oxide inking here on the outside of the card, and then I used some glitter paste, some gold glitter paste on the outside with a heart stencil from my stash to create this really beautiful background. And then I watercolor painted all the critters with some Zig markers and a water brush, and there you have it. That was it. So it looks kind of complicated, but it's really not. I thought I'd start by sharing how I created the background with you guys, and then we'll do a little bit of painting of at least the bear, because he's pretty big, and I wanted to show you guys how I was able to paint him with the Zig markers and a water brush. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that I did was I did some Distress Oxide inking on my background. So I'm going to set the card aside and bring over some Canson XL watercolor paper that I've already cut down to size. I've cut it to just slightly smaller than an A2 sized card front. Now, the 3 Distress Oxide inks that I used are Fossilized Amber, Candied Apple, and Fired Brick. And again, these are all the Distress Oxide inks, although if you have the regular Distress inks, those would work fine for this technique too. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to kind of coat the first half or so of the bottom of this piece of watercolor cardstock with the lightest color, which is the Fossilized Amber. So I'm just going to kind of start in circular motion off the paper, and then I have a light hand here, and I am just putting this ink onto the paper. The reason I'm using the Canson XL watercolor paper is because I want to spritz this with some water to get that effect where the Distress Oxide inks react so beautifully to the water. And I'm also going to be adding the glitter paste as well. So I just kind of wanted a thicker cardstock that's able to absorb all of that. However, I have done this technique before with regular Canson, with Bristol smooth cardstock, and it worked just fine. Just go light on your water if you're going to use the Canson XL watercolor paper. So yeah, but you can absolutely use that if you prefer. It's really just whatever you prefer. Either paper will work for this technique. I'm now going to come in with the Candied Apple Distress Oxide ink, and I'm just going to kind of put it here and about till we have just a tiny little bit at the top remaining. And I'm not really worried about mixing it or blending it right now with the color I've already laid down. I just want to get the ink onto the paper. And I'm holding this paper like this because I don't want my fingerprints reacting to it. So that's kind of why my hand looks funky here on the left hand side of the paper. So I've got that Candied Apple down, which is a very pretty color. And now I'm going to take the Fired Brick, put it at the top here, and then I'm also going to kind of just go down the sides with the Fired Brick as well. So we have a little bit of something extra down here where the Fossilized Amber is as well. Just a little bit. And again, don't worry about blending right now. You just want to get the ink on the paper. We are going to take care of all of this blending in a moment, and I'll show you before we do that what a mess this is looking. And that's okay. It's absolutely okay, because we are going to make this look beautiful in a moment. So there you go. There's our messy, very messy piece of cardstock. Now I'm going to come in with a Fossilized Amber and start blending it with what I've laid down here below. So I'm blending it where it meets the Candied Apple, and I'm also blending it down here where I have placed some of that Fired Brick. And as you can see, this really is a beautiful fall kind of color scheme. I just absolutely love it. I have so many different backgrounds in mind now with this color scheme. but I don't want to bore you guys, so I try to mix it up a little bit, but this is definitely a color scheme that you could go back to. I'm going to come in now with the candied apple again and just kind of mix it here with the fossilized amber. And of course the fired brick that we have on top here. I'm going to come in with a little bit with the fossilized amber again. Just lighten that candied apple just a little bit. So there's a nice gradual shift in color from one color to the next. There we go. This is looking really, really nice. And then finally, we're going to come in with the fired brick again. So as you can see, when I'm doing my blending, I do like to kind of really go at it with, in terms of, I'm not having a heavy hand. I don't mean that way. I mean, I like to really pile those colors on top of each other so it's very vibrant and very beautiful. You definitely don't have to do as many layers of color as I have done. This is really just one of those personal preference type things, but I really like the colors to pop. And so that's why I tend to kind of play at it until I am completely satisfied. But I think I'm really getting there with this piece, so I'm going to call it quits here at this point. I'm really, really liking this. So let's go ahead and put our blending tools away here quickly before I make a mess. And then the next step is we're just going to slightly spritz this with some water from our Distress sprayer. So that will be the next step. You can use any squirt bottle that you happen to have around the house. I just like the Distress sprayer because it has this feature where it has this locking mechanism, and if you just pull it just a little tiny bit, about 3/4 of the way, you get droplets instead of a spray. So that's why I always kind of reach for this. So I'm just slightly getting some, I kind of mix it. I do some spray and some droplets, if that makes sense. So I'm going to let that sit for just a moment, and now I'm going to blot it with my paper towel. And there we have a really fun effect. Now the next step that we're going to do is we're going to add, let me pull the finished card over. We're going to add these hearts. And the way that we do that is I just have a heart stencil from my stash that we're going to place over top of this. But before we do that, because I'm on camera and I don't want to wait a couple, about 30 seconds or so for this water to dry, I'm just going to hit this with my heat tool quickly, just to make sure this is completely dry before we put that stencil down, because if it's not, the water's going to react with the stencil being placed on top of it, and we'll get some funky marks on our paper, and we don't want that. All right, so there we go. We've gone ahead and made sure that this is completely dry. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my heart stencil, and again, this is just from my stash here. I'll try to use a little bit less used part of my scratch paper here. So I'm just going to lay it down and position it how I want it here. That looks really pretty. Now I'm going to turn this over. There we go. I'm going to turn it over and take some Post-it note tape, which is a very low-tack tape, and tape the cardstock to the stencil on the back. This is going to keep the stencil in place, but it'll enable me to work on it on the front here so it doesn't move on us as we're doing this. Okay, so now it's time to take our gold glitter paste, and I have a palette knife here. And what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to, first I like to kind of give it a little mix with the palette knife, just kind of mix it up a little bit, get the glitter flowing. And then I'm going to take a big old glob of it, and I'm going to simply lay it on my stencil like so, just to kind of get it off the palette knife. And then we're going to start what I call buttering, for lack of a better term, because it really does feel like you're buttering bread or making peanut butter and jelly or something like that. But I'm going to now maneuver all of this glitter onto my card panel here and just get that glitter inside each and every heart that's on the cardstock. We obviously have hearts that are on the scratch paper. We don't need to worry about those. We just want to make sure that glitter gets deep into the holes in the stencil for the hearts, if that makes sense. So you just kind of glide it across your cardstock. I keep going back to the top here and sliding it down because your glitter will kind of pool on the stencil. And so you can get a lot more out of your product instead of constantly reaching into the little tub. Just keep going back over what you've already done, collect the excess, and then keep using it on the stencil, if that hopefully that makes sense. You want to make sure though, as you do that, that you don't remove any from the actual, heart the hearts that you've already done. So I like to kind of look over everything as I'm going, make sure all my hearts have glitter all over the inside of the stencil. And if not, I just go right back up and do it again. But this is actually looking really, really good so far. We're not quite done yet. We're probably gonna need to dip in, but we'll see if we can make this last. A little of this product does go a long way. So don't be afraid to just kind of use up everything that you have before reaching back into the tub, because you really can get a lot out of one application. Okay, I think all my hearts except this one look really good. Let me fix this one. Oop, that one does not want to cover, does it? Let's see. There we go. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is just kind of remove what's on my palette knife as best I can so I don't waste it. And then we'll bottle this back up. I am going to set my palette knife here and then move it aside in just a moment. Now we're going to take the stencil off so you can see the beautiful hearts underneath. So I'm just going to grab the paper where there are no hearts and pull this up, and voila. It is absolutely beautiful, guys. Look at this. As you can see, every single heart that the stencil had on it is completely covered and beautiful, and that gold, oh look at that, and that gold glimmer is so pretty. So I'm going to set this aside to dry. One word of advice: as soon as you have done this with the glitter paste, you want to clean this off, the stencil and the palette knife. Otherwise you will find that you have a mess, and it will be very hard and crusty on your stencil, and you don't want that because you want your stencils to last a really long time. So as soon as I get off camera, I will certainly be cleaning mine off. I recommend doing it immediately. Obviously, I'm not going to stop the video for that, but if you're doing this at home, I definitely recommend that you do that immediately, just so you don't ruin your stencils. All right, so let me quickly show you just a little bit of coloring now. This is, as I said at the start of the video, probably one of my most favorite images ever. I just love these little critters. I don't think they could be any cuter. But when you are working with zig markers and a water brush, and I'm using my detailer water brush here, which I always use, it lets me get into these tiny little spaces without getting ink outside because of the really thin tip. You can also use a paintbrush with your zigs and just dip it in water. If you do that though, make sure that you use a very thin, a paintbrush that has a very thin tip on it so you can get into these small spaces. When you're working with watercolors of any medium really, be it paints or zig markers, larger images can be a little bit trickier simply because you get water that likes to pool with the paint or with the markers, and it can cause lines in your project. So I want to kind of show you how I colored this bear, because he was kind of, I had to keep going over him quite a few times to get him like I wanted him. Here's the finished card again, and as you can see, there's really nice shading now on that bear. It didn't always look like that. I had to keep going after it quite a bit. So I thought I would do this on camera for you, kind of like a live color along, and let me apologize if this is this is probably going to be a kind of lengthy video because I've done a background and a fairly large in-depth coloring project here, so I apologize for that. But I thought it might be helpful. I hope that it's helpful, and I'm not wasting your time. So for this large bear, the main colors that I used are dark brown and brown. So as always, I came down with my darkest color first, which is the dark brown. Now I'm coming in with the brown, and I'm working in sections, which I always do. So I'm really literally breaking this up into the smallest sections possible. It just helps keep me organized with my shading, and also keeps that marker paint, whatever medium you're working with, nice and wet and able to be moved by the water so it doesn't dry up on us and create a mess. All right, so as you can see there, I just laid down the dark brown, mixed a little bit of the brown, and then hit it with my water brush. I'm going to do the same thing with this section now. And these small sections are easy peasy. These tiny sections, no problem at all in terms of working with your watercolor painting here. It's this large section here leading up into the face that I had a little bit of trouble with. And all I did is I just kept going back at it until I had it exactly how I wanted it. By going back at it, I simply mean going back in with my markers, tracing over exactly what I did, and just doing that multiple times until I was completely satisfied. I'm going to come now and work on this hard section. So I'm going to put the dark marker down. There's certainly going to be shading. By the way, I have my light source coming from the left. He's facing towards the left, so I kind of imagine the sun or what have you is coming down this way. So the right side of his body is certainly going to be darkest. But there's also going to be shading, of course, where all of these little animals are up against his body. Forgive me for continuously turning the image here. It's just a little easier and keeps my head out of the camera. So that's why I do it. All right, so there we have just a line of the dark marker. I'm coming in now with the brown, and we're gonna blend this out. Now, when you have larger images like this, it's okay to bring that color out quite a ways. As you can see, I'm mixing it with the dark brown and pulling out into this white space. And again, it's okay to pull it out. And that is kind of what I messed up on my first go around when I was coloring this image earlier as I was completing the finished card. I didn't pull it out far enough, so I got these little watercolor lines. Now, a lot of people, that's what they're going for when they're watercoloring, and that is fantastic. And if that's what you are looking for, then you don't need to keep repeating your steps or pull it out this far or what have you. I like it to look more like an alcohol ink type look. So I like it to be very well shaded, and I like those lines virtually non-existent. There's going to be some line because you are going from one shade to another, obviously. So there's going to be some differentiation between colors, and I don't mean that, but I don't like these kind of blotchy watercolor looking lines on my colorings. And I have found how to kind of eliminate those with these zig markers. Okay, so far, as you can see, I've done the body, and I've come up here and done this arm as well. Let me show you what I'm talking about. There's obviously going to be some type of distinction between down here where it's darker and here, and that's the shading. But that line to me is a little too dark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my brown and just go at it again. I'm mixing it with the dark brown that's still there. Coming in, just putting that marker color down. There's a little shading here under his face as well. And then I'm going to take my water brush rather, excuse me, and pull at this again. And it's just going to eliminate the intensity of the shading between the colors, if you will, if that makes sense. See how it's much less pronounced now? It's a lot more of a, what am I trying to say, like an easy transition between the colors. That's what I'm looking for. And that's what I'm able to create by going at it and repeating the steps again. I would probably repeat it one more time, but for the purposes of the video, I'm going to keep going here and do his little face. So I'm going to come up here, put some of this shading, this darkest color here. Of course, where you're putting your marker is where your darkest color is going to be, where your shadow is going to be of the image. Coming in now with the brown to kind of mix with this dark brown. A little bit here and a little bit under here. All right, and now we will take our water brush, and it does most of the work for us, which is awesome. And as you can see, I use circular motions and also painting motions when I'm using my water brush, just to get the ink looking exactly how I want it. Sometimes I get little streaks or those lines I was talking about. If you get those, all you do is go back over it with your marker again. Usually all you need to do is go back at it with your lightest marker. Again, you don't usually need to repeat your darkest. Sometimes you do, just play with it. But I have found, literally guys, I haven't had to destroy or throw away one image since I started using the zigs. By that I simply mean I haven't had to trash an image. I've been able to salvage everything that I have used by just going back in, working at it a little bit more with the coloring. I haven't had to throw anything away. I've been able to salvage everything I've tried to color, which was never the case for me before. I threw so much away because I was so unhappy with it and I couldn't fix it. Now that does not mean I don't make mistakes with these zigs. I make mistakes all the time. You've seen them on camera. I go out of the lines. I do this, I do that. But I'm able to fix them. I find that these markers are so incredibly forgiving that I'm able to fix them quite easily. And there you go. I think he looks absolutely adorable, and I have just done this super fast here on camera for you. So if I was going over this just one or two more times, he'd probably be absolutely perfect. But you know, he's pretty much card worthy right now, honestly. Now I'm going to come over here and just do his leg. And again, this is the thinner, smaller piece of the image, so this won't be hard at all to do. So you come in with your dark brown, then your brown, water brush, of course, again, does all of that work for you. And here we go. Just mixing. Mix, mix, mix. There we go. Very nice. And we have a little piece, whoops, sorry, we have a little piece of his leg here, and then over here as well. So we'll just color those in quickly. And I just love this image. I know I keep saying that, but oh, it is so cute. You guys have got to check out this brand new Honeybee Stamps release. It is absolutely fantastic. Now to color his little pads of his paws, I just used light pink, and I didn't even bother with the water on those small parts right there. I did a little bit of water there though on the bigger pad of his little paw. Oops, we forgot to do his ears. Sorry about that. I'm going to come in with the dark brown for his ears. Trying to go super quick now. I know this video is long and I apologize for that. Again, I just thought that seeing me do this larger image would be helpful, because I know for me there was definitely a learning curve for these larger images with the watercolors and the zigs, just, you know, and I thought if I can pass on, you know, the mistakes that I have made and help anyone out, then it's all worth it. Okay, finally for his little nose, I used black. I just put that right here on the right side, because again, that light source is coming from the left. I'm just going to turn him so I can see a little better, and then there you go. So that is how I did the little bear. I will have a list of all of the zig markers that I use to color all of the images on this cute little card here for you on my blog, and I will have a description, a link to my blog in the description box of the video below. So you will be able to go over there. There'll be lots of pictures, information, complete product list. Please head over to Butterfly Reflections Inc. to check out this new Honeybee Stamps release. It is amazing. You can get your Distress Oxide Inks there. You can get your glitter paste there. So definitely check out Vanessa's shop. And here's one last look at the card with that really pretty background. I kept the card very simple, as you can see. I really wanted that background to be, and of course the adorable image, to be the stars of the show. So I just added some very small little crystal drops. Actually, that's not what they're called. They are called Ice Cube Mix Jewels from Lucy's Things. And they just are very subtle, but I thought they added a nice touch, but they were very subtle and didn't take away from the background. And then I have the sentiment, of course, embossed with white, and as I showed you at the beginning of the video, their larger sentiment with some hearts stamped on the inside. And all of this is on an A2 size card base. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much, as always, for crafting with me today and for stopping by, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.